In his last talk with Variety magazine, Jack Elam shocked everyone when he suddenly told them about the movie stars he hated most. He shared painful memories that hurt him deeply. One star ruined his career by spreading mean lies about him. Another star made fun of his unusual eyes on live TV, but the worst hurt was when he fell in love with a famous actor. But someone else came between them and broke his heart. These confessions pulled back the pretty curtain of Hollywood and showed the mean, dark side that Hollywood always tried to hide. So, who were the people Elam talked about, and why did he wait until he was dying to tell everyone? Let's find out in today's video. Number 1. Gary Cooper, the secret boyfriend and the painful betrayal. Hollywood in the 1940s wasn't just about bright lights and pretty things. It was also a place where secret love stories were hidden behind fancy curtains. Very few people knew that behind Gary Cooper's shiny movie star image, the man that millions of people thought was the perfect strong guy, was a forbidden secret love affair with Jack Elam, who back then was just a small actor who usually played bad guys. According to whispers in the movie business, Cooper first came to Elam because he couldn't resist his feelings. A worker at the Beverly Hills Hotel once told Confidential magazine that Cooper had very strong emotions and Elam knew exactly how to make him feel better. They stayed close for years, spending long nights together in secret, with only soft jazz music from an old record player and the sound of bourbon glasses clinking. But their differences soon turned their relationship into a tiring fight. Cooper often wanted to make things more exciting by bringing a third person into their nights together. He would say, half joking and half serious, "Jack, just try it once. We'll have so much more fun." Elam said no completely. He was old-fashioned, private, and refused to cross that line. Even when it came to telling people about their relationship, Cooper wanted to do it because he was tired of the fake image Paramount Movie Studio had built around him. Elam, however, was scared that his small career would be destroyed if the truth came out. Those fights became like fire that slowly burned away their love. When Cooper couldn't get what he wanted, he looked for other ways to feel better. By early 1948, newspapers went crazy when Cooper was seen many times with Randolph Scott in Palm Springs. The two men weren't just playing golf together at El Dorado, but also going to all-night private parties. Scott was already famous for rumors about living with Cary Grant. So when photos of him and Cooper showed up in Photoplay magazine, Hollywood exploded with gossip. People in the movie business whispered that Cooper found in Scott what Jack Elam would never dare give him: being bold and not caring what people thought. When Elam heard the news, he sat quietly in his small Hollywood Boulevard apartment like his whole world had fallen apart. The nightmare got worse in the summer of 1952. At a wild party at the Macambo Club, Cooper got drunk and accidentally told a reporter he knew that he once had a special supporting actor partner for many years. Weeks later, Luella Parsons's column in the Los Angeles Examiner ran a mysterious piece saying a supporting actor with unusual eyes was hiding a shocking secret. Even though no name was mentioned, everyone knew they were talking about Jack Elam. What happened next was fast and terrible. NBC, which was almost ready to sign contracts with Elam, suddenly canceled them. Directors like Bud Betticher and Henry Hathaway stayed away from him, afraid of making people angry. Friends in the business also stepped away like they were scared of getting in trouble just by being around him. In Hollywood, having a good reputation often mattered more than being talented, and Elam lost almost everything because of one mysterious newspaper article. From that moment on, the love that once made him feel good turned into a burning fire of hate. To Elam, Gary Cooper wasn't just someone who betrayed him in love, but the man who indirectly wrecked his career and honor. Every time he saw Cooper smiling on the cover of Life magazine, Elam remembered the fall of 1952, a scar carved deep in his heart that never healed. But Elam's string of terrible things didn't end there. After Gary Cooper came another cowboy legend who embarrassed him in front of the whole world, all starting from what seemed like an innocent golf game. Chapter 2. John Wayne, Public Embarrassment and the Golf Course Fight. Among the names that Jack Elam hated until his last days, John Wayne was definitely at the top. To the world, Wayne was the Duke. the ultimate symbol of tough manliness, an unbeatable Western hero. But to Elam, Wayne was a fake kind of tough guy, a man who forced his own idea of the perfect man on everyone else. Their distance was obvious from their first time working together at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank in the late 1950s. Wayne walked in with his bold steps, loud laughter, and took control of the room. The crew immediately gathered around him. Elam, on the other hand, was just a supporting actor with crooked eyes, usually cast as the loser bad guy. During one scene, Wayne sneered and said half-jokingly, "It's hard for the audience to focus on the hero when there's a crooked face wandering around." The crew burst into laughter while Elam sat frozen, feeling embarrassed. A lighting worker later told Hollywood Reporter that Elam quietly left the set early that day without saying goodbye to anyone. The meanness spilled over beyond the movie set. In 1961, Palm Springs hosted a charity golf tournament with stars like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bing Crosby, and lots of reporters from Los Angeles Times and CBS News. Elam joined for fun, knowing he had no chance of winning. As expected, John Wayne won easily. But what crushed Elam wasn't losing the game. It was being made fun of in public. Wayne kept making fun of him, comparing his missed golf swings to a one-eyed cowboy who was lost and couldn't find his way back to town. Laughter roared across the golf course. Television cameras zoomed in, catching Elam's face turning red, his hands shaking as he held the golf club. That was the day he promised never to forget the embarrassment. After that, the fancy Beverly Hills hotel parties only made Elam feel more left out. Wayne enjoyed the company of directors like Howard Hawks, producer Darryl F. Zanuck, and famous actresses while Elam hid in the corners. Wayne would pour whiskey, yell about war, politics, and power, saying arrogantly, "Hollywood is for the strong. The weak will soon disappear." To Elam, who had fought twice as hard to overcome his physical problem, it was a cruel insult. The anger got deeper when Wayne spoke publicly on television. In a 1960 ABC interview, he said, "America needed to get rid of weak people, that society was only for the strong." For Elam, it was like being slapped in the face, proof that no matter how hard he worked, he would always be dismissed. The final blow came with Wayne's famous 1971 Playboy interview where he openly said extreme things about race and praised white American male supremacy. Reading those words, Elam realized the hate Wayne held wasn't just for his eyes or his humble background. It was part of a deeply planted way of thinking. For Wayne, anyone outside his idea of the perfect American male deserved to be stepped on. To the public, John Wayne stayed forever the Western hero, the Duke. But to Jack Elam, he was an empty statue, a bully dressed up as a good guy to hide his meanness and cruelty. The Palm Springs embarrassment, the movie set insults, and the extreme statements carved a deep scar in Elam's soul, feeding a hate that never cooled. And yet Wayne was not the only one who made Elam see Hollywood as a land of lies. There was another man praised as Mr. Nice Guy America, who nearly destroyed Elam's career during the ruthless Red Scare years. His name was James Stewart. Chapter 3. James Stewart, the stain of the communist hunts. To understand the grudge Jack Elam carried for life, we must go back to the 1950s when America was obsessed with the Red Scare. At that time, just a hint of being pro-communist could end a career overnight. The House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, relentlessly dragged Hollywood artists to hearings. From Congress meeting rooms to bars on Hollywood Boulevard, suspicion was everywhere. One sideways look could spark an accusation. In this atmosphere, James Stewart became the poster boy for the conservative cause. A decorated World War II pilot who flew B-24 Liberators, he was praised in Life and Time magazines as the soldier who returned to defend American values. MGM and other studios paraded him at rallies and speeches about the Red Menace, turning him into a propaganda darling. Elam, meanwhile, was just a struggling supporting actor with crooked eyes. Rumors spread that Stewart used his influence to hurt him. In 1953, at a closed meeting at the Beverly Hills Country Club, Stewart was supposedly the secret informant who tipped Hughes that Elam had ties to leftist screenwriters who gathered at Musso and Frank Grill. Weeks later, Elam got a subpoena. Hollywood Reporter ran a mysterious item about a crooked-eyed supporting actor under suspicion. Elam went through painful questioning in Washington, sweating under bright lights, grilled by stern congressmen. They asked who he met, what he read, whether he ever went to gatherings at Dalton Trumbo's house. Even though HUAC found no evidence, Elam was marked as dangerous. Contracts fell apart. NBC had planned to cast him in a new Western series, but after the scandal, his name disappeared. While Elam lived in fear of being blacklisted, Stewart soared higher. On CBS in 1954, he was introduced as soldier, star, model citizen of America. The contrast cut deep, like salt on Elam's wounds. He never forgot a day in 1955 at Universal Studios when Stewart flatly refused to rehearse with supporting actors. He waved dismissively, "I don't need to waste time on unimportant people." That sentence sealed Elam's embarrassment, turning his bitterness into hate. Stewart's fakeness showed elsewhere. In 1957, he founded the Stewart Foundation for Veterans, raising money for ex-soldiers. But Los Angeles Examiner questioned missing funds. Rumors swirled that Stewart funneled donations into his own film project. Thanks to his political ties, the scandal was buried. Insiders nicknamed it the Cover-Up Fund. To Elam, Stewart was the perfect example of lies. On the surface, he was a national hero, Mr. Nice Guy America. But in the shadows, he was a man willing to sacrifice colleagues to boost his image, even steal public trust for personal gain. Every time Elam saw Stewart walk down the red carpet, he remembered the HUAC hearings, the sweat, the shame, the feeling of being branded a traitor just for being different. For Jack Elam, James Stewart wasn't just a powerful star. He was the man who crushed his dignity through fakeness. Yet even that wasn't the end. Soon after, Elam faced Henry Fonda, a cold, distant rival who dragged him into a silent war over the heart of another troubled star. Chapter 4. Henry Fonda, Rivalry for the Heart of a Closeted Star. By the mid-1950s, Hollywood was buzzing with the name Montgomery Clift. He had just amazed people in A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity, with Elizabeth Taylor praising him as so fragile yet so irresistible that no one could resist him. That fragile charm accidentally started a bitter rivalry between two completely different men. Henry Fonda and Jack Elam. Fonda was an A-list icon hailed as Hollywood's face of justice, with cool looks and a commanding presence. Elam was the opposite, a supporting actor whose crooked eyes branded him as a villain, forever stuck in the lower ranks. Yet both were drawn to Clift, who became both a love and a prize to win. In 1956, at a fancy Beverly Hills hotel party hosted by Elizabeth Taylor, the rivalry came out into the open. Elam walked in with Clift, both laughing warmly in the grand lobby. But when Henry Fonda arrived, the atmosphere froze. With a single cold look, guests whispered, "Clearly Clift is the prize both men are fighting for." Minutes later, Fonda boldly approached, placed a hand on Clift's shoulder, and led him away to another table. Elam was left standing alone, awkward under pitying stares. A Los Angeles Times reporter who was there described, "It was like a rigged game. Elam never had a chance." In truth, Elam couldn't compete. Clift already knew Fonda, and Fonda was respected by producers and directors. Elam's unusual looks made him an outsider. The harder he tried to hold on to Clift, the smaller he felt against Fonda, who had everything: fame, stature, magnetism. As years passed, the balance tipped further. After Clift's devastating 1956 car accident, Fonda often sent flowers, visited, and made sure he got the best care. Elam, meanwhile, could only drop by a few times, sitting quietly for hours like an outsider. A friend of Clift later told Variety, "Jack came with begging eyes, but Monty clearly put his trust in Henry." The ultimate embarrassment came in 1969 at Clift's funeral at St. James's Episcopal Church in New York. Henry Fonda arrived with Clift's family, proudly seated in the front row, greeted respectfully by Elizabeth Taylor. Elam, despite once being deeply close, stayed at the back, an invisible stranger. That image haunted Elam to the end. Losing his love, being defeated by a rival, and above all, being looked down on by Hollywood for not fitting their standard of beauty. To Elam, Henry Fonda was not just a cold colleague. He was the man who stole the one person who made Elam feel less alone in Hollywood. That double embarrassment, rejection, and heartbreak turned Fonda's name into one that made Elam's blood boil whenever it was mentioned. But the bitterness didn't stop there. After Fonda came Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, whose glamorous front hid ties to the mafia and explosive scandals that Elam hated to his core. Number 5. Clark Gable. The king of Hollywood turned arrogant under mafia protection. The public still remembers Clark Gable as the elegant gentleman in Gone with the Wind, fondly calling him the king of Hollywood. But behind the glamour was another face. An arrogant, domineering Clark Gable, protected by the mafia and willing to use his power to crush anyone who dared stand in his way. As early as the 1940s, Gable had close ties with Mickey Cohen, the notorious Los Angeles mob boss. It was Cohen who acted as Gable's shield, saving him from countless sex scandals. In April 1941, a Los Angeles Examiner reporter prepared to release a series of photos showing Gable drunk, hugging two married women at the Brown Derby restaurant. The story was certain to explode in Hollywood, but just days later, the photos disappeared and the newsroom fell into suspicious silence. Within the industry, the whispers were clear. The mafia had stepped in, killing a media bomb before it went off. With such backing, Gable grew increasingly arrogant. Young actor Robert Walker was one of his first victims. During the filming of Baton in 1943, Walker was given a promising supporting role, but Gable feared the role might overshadow him. Rumor has it that Gable had the mafia suggest that Walker transport mysterious packages from Las Vegas to Hollywood as a favor. Trembling, Walker refused. Weeks later, he was suddenly dropped from the project, and the role was handed to someone personally recommended by Gable. In 1947, rising actress Susan Peters signed with MGM, hoping to rise to stardom. But in a romantic film, Peters's lead role was suddenly cut down after Gable stepped in, forcing the script to revolve around his character instead. In exchange, Peters was pressured into signing so-called charitable finance papers for a fund bearing Gable's name. Later whispers claimed it was actually a money laundering scheme run by Mickey Cohen. The film bombed. Peters's career spiraled into crisis. Yet Gable proudly graced the cover of Variety. Anthony Quinn, the Mexican-born star, also suffered Gable's cruelty. At a Beverly Hills party in 1950, Gable openly made fun of Quinn's heritage, silencing the entire room. Not stopping there, Gable used his mafia ties to delay Quinn's major contract negotiations with Paramount. The opportunity slipped away, leaving Quinn devastated, while Gable remained comfortably on his throne. Gable's personal stains were endless. He used his bad boy image to hide his womanizing and gambling addictions. Confidential magazine once hinted that Gable had an illegitimate child with Loretta Young, a scandal Cohen supposedly paid to cover up. He was also rumored to be tied to underground betting rings in Las Vegas, using young actors as couriers to move money. Anyone who dared speak up quickly found themselves pushed out of Hollywood's circle. Jack Elam witnessed it all, from colleagues being forced to do things, to parties where Gable strutted proudly as if Hollywood rested in the palm of his hand. To Elam, Gable wasn't a king, but a puppet of the mafia, shiny on the outside but rotten within. Elam hated him to the bone, seeing Gable as proof of Hollywood's unfairness. Those with backing were hailed as legends, while truly talented people were crushed into nothing. But Elam's list of enemies didn't end there. After Gable came the name of Bert Lancaster, the star famous not only for his fierce masculinity, but also for his fiery temper and huge ego, a man unafraid to call on the underworld to clear his path. Number 6. Bert Lancaster, Arrogance and the Hand of the Underworld. Bert Lancaster was long celebrated as Hollywood's Iron Star, the handsome face with a sharp smile that captivated audiences in The Killers and From Here to Eternity. But behind the polished exterior, he was hot-tempered, ambitious, and unafraid to use the mob's hand to wipe away his rivals. From his early rise in the late 1940s, Lancaster relied on ties with New Jersey mafia figures from where he had grown up. The name most often mentioned was Frank Costello, the East Coast gambling kingpin. It was Costello who backed Lancaster's long-term contract with Paramount. While many of his peers were left behind, Jack Elam bitterly told friends, "Without Costello, Bert would just be a circus stuntman." Elam personally felt Lancaster's ruthlessness in 1952. At the time, Elam had a draft contract for a villain role in Warner Brothers' The Crimson Pirate. It was supposed to be his chance to break free from minor supporting roles, but just days before shooting, his name disappeared from the cast list. The replacement was a little-known actor close to Lancaster. What happened? According to crew members, Lancaster called Warner executives directly, demanding Elam be cut, claiming that crooked-eyed guy will ruin the frames. Perfection. Elam watched helplessly as his opportunity was stolen while Lancaster strutted across the screen. Lancaster's arrogance didn't stop at stealing roles. He was infamous for his tantrums on set. At Universal in 1954, during the filming of Apache, he exploded when director Robert Aldrich asked for a retake. In front of the entire crew, he threw the script at Aldrich's face, then barked at supporting actors, "You're just background walls for me." Jack Elam, present that day, later said he had never felt so embarrassed. Behind these outbursts, Lancaster also used dirty tricks to get rid of competition. Young actor Farley Granger, fresh off fame from Hitchcock's Rope in 1948, was one target. As Granger prepared to sign a major MGM deal in 1950, Confidential magazine suddenly released a sex scandal that tanked the contract. Insiders whispered it was set up by Lancaster's backers, because soon after he conveniently landed the leading role Granger had been eyed for. Elam, too, fell victim to studio traps. In 1955, the Los Angeles Mirror ran a small piece hinting that a crooked-eyed supporting actor was drunk and causing fights on Sunset Strip. Though unnamed, the physical description fit Elam. The rumor spread, costing him a television deal. Industry insiders whispered Lancaster had pulled strings, using mafia fake evidence to smear Elam and clear the path for someone else. Lancaster even struck at Elam's personal pride at a fancy Beverly Hills hotel party in 1956. He sneered publicly, "Hollywood is for perfect faces, not for freaks." Laughter erupted, leaving Elam frozen in embarrassment. That moment burned into his memory. Lancaster had killed his last bit of dignity. Off-screen, Lancaster was no cleaner. He was rumored to misuse production funds to pay for his fancy lifestyle. In 1958, the Los Angeles Times questioned inflated budgets on Sweet Smell of Success, noting excess funds funneled into a shell company tied to a mafia figure. The scandal was quickly buried, but industry whispers were clear. Lancaster had turned cinema into a laundering machine. To Elam, Bert Lancaster was the terrifying blend of power, arrogance, and dark scheming, a man who crushed colleagues, stole opportunities, and yet wore the mask of a respected star before the public. Every time Elam saw Lancaster on Variety's cover or praised on NBC, rage boiled anew. And yet Lancaster was not the last. Soon, Elam would face another adversary just as arrogant, just as ambitious, a man bold enough to steal lines right on set. That man was Kirk Douglas. Chapter 7. Kirk Douglas, Ambition from Battlefield to Film Set. Kirk Douglas was often hailed as a true warrior of Hollywood. On screen, he was the unstoppable hero of Spartacus. Off-screen, the press adored him as the ideal masculine icon. But to Jack Elam, Douglas was no hero, only an ambitious man, showing off his war record and stealing the spotlight from anyone in his way. During World War II, Douglas served as a U.S. Navy officer. Elam, by contrast, enlisted at a lower rank, working in logistics, hauling supplies. After the war, Douglas often appeared in Life and Time magazines, boasting of his glorious days. But whenever he saw Elam at post-war gatherings, Douglas would sneer. At a 1947 veterans reunion in Los Angeles, Douglas smirked and said loudly, "Some give orders, some just haul rice sacks. You're the latter, Jack." The room burst into laughter. Elam stormed out in shame. On set, Douglas's ambition was even clearer. In 1955 at Universal, Elam was given a rare chance to exchange direct dialogue with Douglas in a Western. It was his opportunity to prove himself alongside a star. But during filming, Douglas ad-libbed extra lines, overshadowing Elam's. Later, he urged the director to keep this improvised version. The scene Elam had hoped for became Douglas's one-man show. The breaking point came in 1960 with Spartacus, produced and headlined by Douglas. Elam had a minor role but poured his heart into it. Then, during a Universal Studios meeting, Douglas coldly told Stanley Kubrick, "Audiences pay to see me, not some crooked-eyed extra." Soon after, Elam's scenes were cut from the theatrical release. The film became legendary, but for Elam, it was a scar. Proof Douglas had crushed his chance before his eyes. Douglas was also notorious for grabbing center stage. In 1962 at Warner Brothers, while filming a group scene, he insisted the camera angle be adjusted so he stood dead center. Supporting actors, including Elam, were pushed to the edges of the frame. Elam bitterly realized that in Hollywood, the powerful always seize the spotlight, leaving others as shadows. Beyond work, Douglas's ideal man image was riddled with contradictions. Photoplay called him Hollywood's most desired man. Yet insiders knew Douglas staged romances to deceive the public. In 1958, he supposedly paid a young actress to appear with him on the red carpet at Grauman's Chinese Theater, creating a playboy image while hiding complicated affairs he didn't want exposed. To Elam, it was blatant fraud. He once told a close friend, "Douglas lives by swallowing other people's light, then painting himself a perfect picture. To me, he's the most despicable." Over the years, every time Elam saw Douglas on Variety's cover or featured on shows like The Ed Sullivan Show, he remembered the stolen lines, the pushed-aside moments, the embarrassments, all because he lacked the power to fight back. But Elam's tale of resentment didn't end with Douglas. He also had to endure another colleague, one so loud and disruptive he ruined entire takes just to steal the spotlight, and whose chaotic personal life made even Elam lose patience. That man was Ernest Borgnine. Chapter 8. Ernest Borgnine, troublesome co-star and chaotic private life. In the public eye, Ernest Borgnine was once hailed as Hollywood's everyman, winning an Oscar for Marty in 1955. But for Jack Elam, he was a nightmare on set, a loud, disruptive man whose scandalous private life turned everything into a circus. The irritation began in 1992 when both appeared on ABC's sitcom Home Improvement. Elam, careful and respectful of the script, carefully prepared for his role as Hick Peterson. Yet every time the cameras rolled, Borgnine would ad-lib, laugh loudly, or pull stunts in front of the lens. In one March taping, while Elam was delivering a serious line, Borgnine suddenly slapped him hard on the back, ruining the scene. The studio audience roared with laughter, and the director kept the take for entertainment value. Elam fumed, realizing his work had been turned into a joke. Borgnine also constantly hogged the spotlight. Backstage at Home Improvement, he often raised his voice to drown out fellow actors, making sure the audience focused only on him. Elam grew so frustrated he once told a production assistant, "This isn't acting anymore. It's a circus." But what Elam hated most was Borgnine's personal life. With 5 marriages, his most infamous was to singer Ethel Merman in 1964. The union lasted just 32 days before collapsing in chaos. The Los Angeles Times called it one of Hollywood's shortest and most ridiculous divorces ever. According to friends, Elam read the article, shook his head, and said, "If a man like that is still celebrated as a legend, then Hollywood truly has no standards. Borgnine's whirlwind marriages and scandals often took over headlines, overshadowing other projects. In 1973, while Elam played a supporting role in a TV film, the entire publicity campaign was drowned out by tabloid frenzy over Borgnine's divorce from Donna Rancourt. For Elam, it felt like his work had been erased by someone turning their life into a sideshow. The irony was that despite his chaos, Borgnine was still celebrated. In 1996, when he received the Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award, NBC broadcast the ceremony live, praising him as America's beloved friend. Elam sat at home, bitterly recalling how Borgnine had trampled him on set, yet Hollywood applauded the noise and absurdity. To Jack Elam, Borgnine was proof that Hollywood didn't just glorify legends, it also praised foolishness. That is why Borgnine always made Elam's list of colleagues he hated most. Jack Elam's story reveals a dark side few expected behind Hollywood's glitter. And you, what do you think of the mysterious names he mentioned? Leave a comment below to join the discussion. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss upcoming videos. If you found this one interesting, share it with your friends to explore together the hidden side of the movie world. See you in the next video.